and we'll have Colleen start us off.
Sure. All right, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we'll do roll call, I guess, in the room first, then Sylvia, if you can help us out with the roll call online. So Colleen Meyer with the town of Londonderry.
Joyce here with town of Derry.
I'm sorry, Kim Remote DOT.
Linda Dusenberry, DOT.
Kristen Clark, Manchester.
Mark Student, town of New Boston.
Nancy Michaels, Manchester, and Mary Londonderry Chambers.
Nate Miller, Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission.
Bruce Thomas, Hooksett.
Mike Whitten, Manchester Transit.
Sylvia Von Aulock, Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission.
Jonathan Golden, Manchester.
Zach Swift, SNA PC.
Fred Roper, Easter Seals.
Tim White, DES.
Thanks, Linda. And then we still have folks coming in. All right. So we have Dave Curto from Windham. Hey, Dave. Thank you. That way. Tom Cloud from where? Hi, Tom.
Yeah.
We have several guests from Strafford Regional Planning Commission. I see Nancy O'Connor and Shana Sylvia.
Jackson isn't able to join us today. He has a doctor's appointment. So.
Oh, all right. So it's, and we have Sad. There's Tim Perlman and Adam Lasney and Monique Chesney and James Vayo. We like a crowd. We have a planning board member from Windham, Ruth Ellen Post. Good morning, Ruth. Jillian Harris from Bedford. Good morning, Jillian.
Good morning.
And last but not least, we have Paul Maloney from Federal Highway. Hi, Paul. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
All right. Take it away, Colleen.
All right, so first we have action on minutes, both May 20th and June 17th. Why don't we, I guess, do a motion on these separately because we probably had different attendance. I don't know if we might need to abstain. So a motion on the minutes of May 20th. Second.
All right, that was from Derry, George Theoris. Adam, are you taking notes?
Yes, but I couldn't quite hear who that was.
All right,
George
so
made the motion and Linda seconded.
did you hear that?
Yep, thank you.
All right, great.
And so any discussion, comments? All right, all those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
So everyone here, anyone in the audience I don't think anyone in the virtual audience was part of that meeting. So we just will move ahead.
Okay. Are any abstentions, I guess, in the room? Okay.
And that, Adam, that was Jonathan from Manchester,
All right,
who abstained.
so June 17th.
Second.
Motion from George. We'll give Bruce the second on that one. Any discussions, comments, corrections? Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Any in the room abstaining on the June 17th?
So Mark Student, New Boston, abstain.
Did you hear that, Adam? Linda, yes, from DOT. All right, thank you. And Mark from New Boston. And Carl Epic has joined us. Hi, Carl.
So with that taken care of, we'll move on. We have a presentation from Adam on the 2021 Regional Trails Plan.
All right, thank you. Let me get,
All right. Sorry about that.
Sylvia, could you let me share my screen, please?
Yeah, hold on, I'm trying to find you. I just lost you. Oh, there we go. Okay, you are now co-host.
Thank you. All right, can everybody see that? All right. So good morning, everyone. This is a recap of an earlier presentation I did with Cam back in May. So this is just a quick recap for those who might not have been there. So our regional trails plan was originally written in 2012, and the 2021 plan was an effort to update that, as there have been many trail changes in the last 9 years. The sections off to the right here, the existing conditions, is kind of our main section, detailing each town, not only in our planning region, but also in the central New Hampshire Regional Planning Commission region. We highlighted some trail gaps. We talked to many trail groups and put their input in the plan. There was a survey conducted early in 2020, and those results are in the plan, as well as a section on community profiles. So here's our trail gap map on the left, with the gaps numbered from south to north, 1 through 10. These numbers tie into a table that's within the plan that goes into a little more detail and describes the gaps and efforts to close the gaps eventually. On the right, we have, this is just an example of one of the town maps. This is the Londonderry Rail Trail, and you can see the gap over here between Londonderry and Manchester, which was the recipient of 2018 TAP funding. So we just, there's a series of these maps, but this is just an example one. Trail groups, Cam and Sylvia, earlier this year conducted a lot of outreach across our planning region. And this was an effort to get input on recent accomplishments, goals for the future, and any other updates that these trail groups wanted to provide. It was an effort to make sure that local voices were heard and that this plan wasn't just produced in a planning commission office detached from what was really going on out there on the trails. There was a survey element to the plan. We had 238 respondents from 40 towns throughout southern New Hampshire, 40 communities rather. This is just a sample question. How do you find out about the trails? We found that local knowledge and word of mouth were the top ways people found out. It also should be noted that half of the respondents were over age 50 and only 10% were under age 35, despite our efforts to get a good demographic range. So the public comment period was open from after the May TAC meeting through after the June MPO meeting. The plan has been posted on our website that whole time. And we did receive a good amount of comments from Central Planning Commission, who worked with us on the plan. They had some updates, as well as a handful of towns that you see here, as well as their trail groups. So most of the public comments were status updates. You see on the right here, this is an example of one of our town profiles. Most of the status updates were simply, our trail is now 3.5 miles instead of 3.2, that sort of thing. A lot has, since we wrote the plan in early 2020, a lot has changed, and that's a good thing. That number one, towns are telling us about these changes, and number two, that progress is being made on the trails constantly. So I thought that was a good thing that we got a lot of feedback. Zach in our office made some mapping changes to reflect the changes in the text. And we also did some formatting to increase the readability. We numbered the trail gaps better, and we put the descriptions in better order with the maps. So just a few examples of the comments we received. This first one's from Manchester. They sent us an engineering report to give us more background on the Rockingham Trail. So we put their feedback into the plan. The second one is from Hooksett. As I said, just a status update from when we had originally written their trail profile. And work is ongoing right through this summer. So there's a lot going on out in Hooksett. And then Goffstown, we had a lot of good feedback from Dave Pierce of the Friends of the Goffstown Rail Trail. The highlighted area here is just some wording that he wanted us to add, and just some formatting and small mapping changes that Goffstown recommended. There were more comments in this. I have the full list if anyone's interested, but for brevity's sake, I figured we just show an example for today. And then this is not in the plan per se, but Sylvia wanted me to mention our rail trail passport. So for Bike Walk to Work Month in May, SNHPC staff came up with this passport. I'm not sure if there's a physical copy there in the room or not, but it features these 10 trails in these 7 towns with little facts and figures, a little website link, as well as down here, a simple map showing the trail and where it is in the town, and a place for the passport to be stamped. And on the bottom here, we partnered with local businesses to get these distributed, and they're still out there. They seem to be getting good feedback, and we did some social media outreach to highlight the passport as well. Anything, Cam or Sylvia, that I should add to that?
Just that we made these as to celebrate Bike to Work Month, and also our just celebrate the region's trails, but we are still continuing this through the summer. So we'll be doing a little more outreach through the towns as well as these businesses. So please keep an eye out. Grab one of them if you see one out there in your towns, and yeah.
Thanks, Adam. That was great.
All right, so with that, if there are any questions, and if not, I think we're looking for a motion to recommend approval of the plan to the MPO.
I would just add, this is James Veo from Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission. I would just add that if anyone attending the TAC today that sees these materials about the passport program has an interest in having some of the passports readily available at their place of business, let us know. We'll get you passports.
This is Paul from Federal Highway. I just wanted to say that's a really nice effort. That's I didn't realize it was a celebration of rail trail and biking in May. I bike anyway, but that was a really nice effort. Nice job.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Any questions for Adam?
If no one has the.
I'll move to recommend approval to the MPO.
Second from Fred. Any other discussion?
Adam, did you get that?
That was Mike and Fred.
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks.
Really good.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Any opposed? Should we, Sylvia, do we need to do a roll call of the folks on Zoom, or?
We should, but I also saw that Nancy had her hand up. It looked like there was a question.
Yep, just a quick question. And sorry if you covered this, but how are you guys tracking in any way how people are using them, or how many people are using them?
The passports, you mean?
Yeah.
I guess I could speak to that. Unfortunately, we're not that much. We kind of wish we had come up with a little better way, maybe through, a hashtag or something like that we put on it. But we've basically just been calling these businesses in the towns just to see, how many people have used them and what kind of reception they've had. So this year was kind of just a test, kind of a fun project, but I think next year we'll have some better measurements.
Yeah, this was kind of a seat of our pants. Oh, what are we going to do this year? We thought of this sort of in February and thought, do we have enough time to do this? And we're just like, yes, go. Monique is on the line too, though. Monique, has there been any activity on social media about the passports? We can't hear you. Darn it. Something with the microphone. Oh, she's coming. She gave up.
We have been pretty aggressive in putting out video content on our Facebook page. And so that's been pretty well received. People have been responding to that. So go ahead, Monique. I see you've entered.
Yeah,
Yeah, we post like highlight videos for each town and then we add the business. So there's been some interaction on that end where people are like, this is great. We're happy to share this with our business and our business is happy to get traffic through this. So we have a little bit of feedback on social media.
Okay, there you have it in a nutshell. I think, oh, we were going to do a roll call for those people online. So let's go to Tom Clow from Where? And you're muted, Tom.
I said yes.
Thanks, Tom. And let's see, Jillian Harris from Bedford.
Yes.
Thanks, Jillian. We have two Windham representatives. I don't know what the bylaws state. It's not Dave Sullivan, but they are two representatives.
As long as it's representative from the
We
town.
have
I
a,
think that's-
so, Dave or Ruth Ellen, would either of you care to vote on this?
I'll say Dave is our trails guy, so I'll let him vote on this.
I would vote yes, Dave Curto.
Thanks, Dave. Fantastic. A vote from Windham. We're excited. All right. I think that's it for this thing then.
All right, so next we have a presentation from our guests from Strafford, Nancy and Shayna.
All right. So who should I will do the co-host for both of you.
For Nancy, yeah, I'm gonna do the PowerPoint.
Co-host. I just went ahead and did for both of you. Pretty soon, everyone will be co-hosting and we'll just all have fun co-hosting. So take it away.
All right, good morning, everybody. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. All right, so I'm sorry, I couldn't change my name on the Zoom, but I'm Nancy O'Connor and I'm the Equity and Engagement Planner at Strafford RPC. And Shayna and I are gonna tell you guys about a couple of great recreation projects we've been working on over the past couple of years, Pathways to Play and promoting outdoor play. The reason I asked the question about tracking was because it's definitely something we can talk about later about POP, but that we struggled with a lot, grappled with, are still grappling with about how to track and keep track of who's using them. So I am going to begin and let Shayna take it away.
Okay, so for those of you I haven't met, I'm the Communications and Outreach Planner at Strafford Regional Planning Commission. And like Nancy said, today we're going to be talking to you about two projects. The original recreation project we did was Pathways to Play, and it kind of led into our most recent Promoting Outdoor Play project. Both of these were funded by the New Hampshire Children's Health Foundation through their program, which is aimed at reducing obesity in children under the age of 5. We initially started Pathways to Play in late 2018 to examine access to recreation in the region, including barriers and gaps. Nancy, if you want to advance. We don't like to use the word problem, so we said the challenge that kind of led us to this project was that there was a multiple recreation data sets that we would interact with when doing different mapping projects, but none were comprehensive, and we wanted to kind of take the different sources and put them into a comprehensive database for the whole region, looking at all recreational sites that were publicly accessible. We also want to better understand access to recreation, if people were able to get there by walking, biking, if there was public transportation access. So that's kind of what led us to our project scope and our goal, which was to create that single GIS data layer and maps for each of our 18 communities, as well as a regional map. And another element of the project was a pilot project, which we ended up doing in Somersworth. And I'm gonna try to talk about the data. I was not very involved. Jackson is our GIS planner, and he was the one who kind of led this data GIS effort. So I'm gonna do my best. And if you have any follow-up questions, we can definitely direct those to Jackson. So the process we went through to achieve this goal was to review all of those existing data sets, and put them together, as well as fact check them with the municipalities to see if they covered all of their public rec sites, if we were missing any, as well as reach out to members of the public for feedback as well. And then we did partner, like I said, with of Somersworth on our pilot project. So these were some of the existing data sources that Jackson knew of and had been using for different projects that he started with for this project. So conservation lands, a data layer from New Hampshire Granite, key destination points from the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. As you can see, I don't have to read through all of them, but there are a lot of different data sources for these rec sites. So it was really important to us to create a regional data set that worked for us, that was comprehensive and pulled in all of these different data sets into one. So the Pathways to Play data layer was refined to provide the most amount of information possible. Data attributes were included when available, including site owner, hours of operation, restroom access, etc. But we didn't go above and beyond to go find this data. If it was, like the point says, if it was available, we added it in. But with the scope of this project, we weren't able to go collect all of those similar data points for each site. That kind of led into the second phase that we're working on right now, which is promoting outdoor play. This is some of the more, oh, sorry, that's fine, Nancy. Yeah. I'm not quite sure what, like I said, I'm not a GIS person, so it's
I know.
Move
These
forward.
are Jackson's slides. I can cheat in a little bit. I know that basically what Shayna is saying is this whole process was desktop, so we weren't able to actually physically go out to check any of these sites. We did reach out as much as possible to the municipalities, rec departments, planning departments, to try and sort of QA/QC their municipality, which was, I'd say, only maybe 40% successful, but very useful where it happened. So what we kind of ended up with was this data set, which was as perfect as we could make it in this, within the scope of this project.
Thanks, Nancy.
Sure.
So some of the outcomes of this Pathways to Play project were a recreation map that was created for each of our 18 municipalities, in addition to regional maps that were put together into a final GIS report. And this report looked at access, kind of coming back to that, that kids and families could get to the parks. This is a map just showing the density of recreation sites in our region, but the report he put together has a lot of maps showing different things like public transportation routes, and like ages around different parks and things like that. So that's available on our website, and it's a really awesome report with a lot of data. And then that final data layer was also an outcome of the project that we can now keep up to date and use moving forward. And it's very comprehensive for our region. And then the Somersworth Pilot Project, which allowed us to work with the city and identify 3 parks to kind of focus in on and look at that accessibility piece up close. So Nancy's going to give you an overview of what that entails.
Thank you. So with Somersworth, the first step here was we met with the planning department to sort of identify an area where there was a concentration of children and also lower income. So this sort of well, the rectangle shows the bigger area, but this sort of triangle, that's the very downtown area, it contains the housing authority. There are a number of school-aged children there. And we also determined lower income by looking at the type of housing. So multi-families, duplexes, etc. To make the assumption that that was a lower income area. So there, I'm trying to see if you can see the 3 parks, not very well, but I'm pointing my screen, which you guys can't see. So we looked at this higher density area and focused on 3 parks that should be accessible to the residents in this area, and started looking at accessibility in terms of, I think I can go on to the next slide. Sorry, this is maybe skipped over a slide, but we basically did a ton of outreach. We spent the whole summer, I guess, 2019 out at summer camps. We had like a table at the library with information. We created Draw Your Dream Park coloring sheets for kids, and we left those at the library. We brought them to National Night Out. We brought them to the summer camps, like I said. We also did some sort of passive, like we left posters with sticky dots for people to put where they lived, which parks they used, stuff like that. We learned very quickly that, you know, we actually did a survey as well at the beginning, that the reason I went to summer camps was to hand out to parents. And, you know, I'd be standing there at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day and realized very suddenly that the children were who we were needing to be speaking to. They had all the like fine details about the parks, what was good about them. They could tell you how many monkey bars they were. They could say the swings were too high, things that parents don't know necessarily. So that was a fun sort of thing. And that's when we sort of really shifted to talking to children who actually use the parks. This was just some examples of the Dream Park activity the kids drew. It was very sweet. We also used, in terms of access, I was trying to remember, Shayna, or if you guys know, was this a statewide project or was it just Rockingham? And
I believe it was just us in Rockingham.
So we did a level of traffic stress for bicycling study that same summer, basically surveying people about all the different routes, where it was safe, what level of bicycle expertise one would need to be on this. So that, again, looking at those streets that lead to those parks and seeing, were they safe? Were they, you know, are there crosswalks? Are there sidewalks? Are there bike lanes? So that was very useful as well.
James just put in the chat that Southern also did the LTS.
Okay, sorry. So you're familiar. So then this was sort of just a basic, how do you get there? Most people drove, even though it was maybe just half a mile from their house, which was interesting. And we really noticed that not a lot of people were walking to either of these any of these parks. And interestingly, because they weren't walking, I think we sort of made the assumption, a very interesting thing that came out of this was that one of the parks, Jules Basson Park, is a playground, and literally not even a quarter mile, like an eighth of a mile down the street is this beautiful Somersworth Riverwalk. And many people we talked to at Jules Basson Park didn't even know it existed. So there's this sort of like lack of connection between things. Also just looking at things like wayfinding, there was no signage from downtown to any of the parks. People weren't necessarily aware of what was there, even though it was just half a mile from their house. And we got information like people drive too fast, there's no crosswalk, like I said, the sidewalks are too bad. So then we took all this information. This is just sort of an example of how we wrapped it up at the end of the study. For each site, we basically took the challenges and put a set of recommendations for the city, looked at feasibility of these projects. Some are small, like putting up a couple of signs versus, you know, fixing a whole sidewalk. And then we also put resources, just even from different people we spoke to in town, who like expressed either interest or volunteerism. We were trying to connect those with the city, and then looked at and we looked for funding resources also, and then looking at what kind of maintenance you're looking at so that Public Works could have a concept.
I would just add to that, Nancy, I don't think we mentioned this, but some of those outcomes were also derived from physically going out and walking some of the sidewalks to assess the infrastructure. So those,
yep, I took my baby stroller out there. There was a picture earlier of me with the baby stroller, and we just like walked around from the neighborhood to the parks to see what it actually felt like in terms of either a wheelchair or a stroller. So looking at that kind of accessibility. These are some of the challenges we've faced. This is sort of, this is a greater, it's not just in Somersworth, this is sort of outcomes of the project challenges. Data collected from municipal staff and the public was very word of mouth, and not necessarily the official channels. So that was kind of difficult. Like for instance, all the kids in Somersworth were getting to Jules Basson Park by crossing the railway tracks on a well-worn path. That's how everyone got there, unless they were driving. And of course, the city was highly unhappy to hear this, but that's what existed. This was a mapping problem. A ton of conservation land is listed as public. However, in real life, it's not something we would have promoted as recreation areas. So like it's a town like Durham, like going through all of their conservation land is tons. Maybe 1/5 of it is actually publicly accessible in real life. So that was a tough challenge, which we were able to work a lot more on in promoting outdoor play. I think that sort of covers the mapping challenges we had. So then we finished this project and gave our report to Somersworth, gave each municipality their map, have the regional map and that whole GIS report. And we realized, I think we actually submitted our last final report and our application for funding on the same day and asked New Hampshire Children's Health Foundation for a second grant, which would allow us to refine this data, get out there, take pictures, like really QA/QC the data ourselves, and also then to we decided to create an online resource, a story map. And then the second phase, which we're doing right now, is just creating a big widespread marketing campaign. So someone's actually using the story map. We're not just having it on our website with nobody looking at it.
And it
So
kind of goes to what Nancy was saying, that like people, there's sites that are behind someone's house that they aren't even aware of. So really promoting those sites and making sure people know what great recreation resources we have in our region.
Yep. All right, I'm gonna hand it back over to Sheena.
So a little bit, we've talked a little bit about this, but kind of what framed this project was, we now have this Pathways to Play data layer that we put together, and it's comprehensive, but it's not necessarily standardized. There's not the same key points and data for each site. So we wanted to figure out the best way to do that and go collect that data. So as Nancy said, we were able to, as part of the process, go out in the field. So our goal was to kind of figure out how we could do that, expand that new recreation layer that we created, and then create this online resource and just kind of advertise everything as far as recreation going on in our region. Nancy, if you want to advance. So one way we did this data collection was not only did SRPC staff go out in the field, but we used UNH students and local volunteers. We put out in our newsletters and our communications that we were looking for volunteers to help us go to these sites and collect data. We put together a Survey 123 app, which is a program through our ARC Online, our GIS account. And people were able to open up this when they were at each site, and it had a set of questions they would answer about hours. Did it have drinking fountains? Did it have shade? Different data points. So we would now have those same data points for each site. So people use this app, and they were also able to take pictures of the site, which was really helpful. And then they would submit it, and we'd have the data automatically on our end. We also, again, met with municipalities to kind of continue to refine the data that we had started putting together through the Pathways to Play process. And it was a very comprehensive process. We went to over 350 sites and assessed every single one of them. The types of recreation sites we categorized. So as you can see on the left, we had playgrounds, parks, trails, sports fields, beaches, pools, boat launches, ice skating rinks, sledding hills, and skate parks were kind of the key areas that we defined our sites into. Some of the key statistics from our data, like I said, over 350 sites were, data was collected for those 350 sites. We collected over 1,200 photographs, and we had 18 data collectors. So like I said, including staff, UNH students, and volunteers. And so far, well, I guess I should preface this. So then we took all of this data and we put it into our online map viewer, which Nancy's going to be doing a little demo of in a second. And we've had over 4,500 views on that map viewer to date. Let's see if you want to advance.
Sorry, I did not know I was doing. Is this live here? No.
So if you click it, it should be a link to the actual map.
Okay. All right, so this is our promoting outdoor play interactive story map. So I'll just show you some examples. Well, this kind of just gives the overview, how to use the viewer, about the funder, data disclaimer, etc. But then if you want to look for a playground in, let's see. So you can see just like pictures of them. So you see something that's interesting, where is this? And it will bring up pictures of that playground, the site details, the hours, as many attributes as we could get. We couldn't get everything for everywhere, but as much as we could. It then also shows you on the map where this is. And it shows you a few pictures of it, so you can know what to expect when you go there. Let's see. Does someone want to pick something else they'd like to see? Trails and open space?
Nancy, does it give you any idea how, like, you might take a bus there or anything like that for connecting to those?
I'm sorry. Hold on 1 second. I'm not sure that that is in the story map. Let me see.
That is a very good idea. I don't think that piece is tied in right now.
I don't think so either.
Does it tell you about the parking available? If
Yes.
You're gonna drive?
Yep, it does. So each one has got a little sort of quick description of what people can expect when they get there, and then the more sort of the dry details. If there's drinking water, if there's parking, if there's designated handicapped parking, is there shade, is there a water fountain, is there seating available? We tried to sort of think of all those amenities that actually make things more accessible, or just so people know also that you don't go there and find out, oh, there's nowhere to park. Let me go back and find another.
So additionally, in the top left of the map, you can type in an address. And so if you wanted to type in that you're going to like Farmington today, it would kind of like zoom in on that community, and the sites on the left would filter. At the top would be the ones in Farmington. So yeah, as you zoom in, when you first go to the tab, it kind of like filters the sites by where you are on the map, which is kind of a cool feature as well.
Thank you. Oh, look who was there. All right, does anyone have any further questions about the story map, or do you want me to go back?
We can always see.
Let me ask one question. This is Paul from Federal Highway.
Sure.
Sorry, I had trouble unmuting myself. This is great information. I love this. As you were going through the information on the left side, some of the site details, I noticed that you pulled out one piece of information. Are there bike racks? That's great information to have. I didn't see it, and I don't know if it's here. But I'm wondering if the type of terrain is here. So let's say someone who wants to go mountain biking may want to look at this area. And if it's all paved, they might not be interested in it. But if it's hard packed or something in the woods, maybe they'll be interested in visiting. And on the other hand, someone who has more of a road style bike might not want to go off road. And I wonder if that's something that many people would find useful, or if that's just a bike geek talking. I don't know.
I think that's a really good point. I think what we tried, like for each one, to say what the sort of what we assume or heard from municipalities, what the most like popular uses were. So, you know, this one says multiple trails around Moose Mountain open for hiking, snowmobiling, snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, biking probably could be there too. And then it does say there are clearly marked dirt trails. So I think you could probably make some assumptions from that.
But that's interesting. We didn't think of that specific data point, but that's a really good.
It is. It's a really interesting thing.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just add, I know that a lot of people are starting to get into gravel riding. And so they're buying bikes that will allow them to go onto a paved road, but what they really want to be riding on is something not paved. And so they're looking for that sweet spot between a full mountain bike with rocks and roots that you'd go over and something that's paved. And probably many of these trails would be conducive to that. But then again, I guess some of these trails might not be trails that people would want that kind of activity on too. So I guess that's a consideration as well. Just a thought, just a thought.
No, I think that's a really good thought. I mean, I think what we were trying to do, say, with pictures was show what kind of terrain is there, but obviously that can change from 1/2 mile to the other 1/2 mile. So I think there was some consideration of that, but not that very specific piece. And I think that is, we'll have to apply for another grant for bikers. Biking access.
Nice work.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Nope. I now don't know how to get back to the PowerPoint because it's hidden by the host bar.
Well,
maybe if
you want to stop sharing your screen and then start sharing your screen again?
No, I think I can do it.
Okay.
I figured it out, I think. Hold on. There we go. All right.
Do you want to just hit the little presentation? If you hover over the bottom, the little presentation icon will make it full screen.
No. Okay.
Okay, so we noted that our first outcome was the digital story map, which we're calling our online map viewer. And kind of our second part of that was then how do we promote this and how do we get people to use it? So we decided to put together 2 forms of a passport. The first being a digital recreation passport. We created that using the same app that we used to collect data for assessing the sites, which was Survey 123. And this digital passport allows people to mark their names, what days they visited the site, and kind of any comments or things that they enjoyed while visiting the site. And we're going to use that in giving away raffles this summer. So we're trying to entice people to log their trips. And I'll talk about this a little bit more later, but we've created social media pages to kind of interact with people with this effort, and we're going to be doing the raffles that way. So we've gotten a couple people using it, but we're really just starting to launch these passport programs in the coming week or so. So we're hoping to get a lot more interaction with that this summer. This is just a snip of what that digital passport actually looks like. So like I said, name, contact info, what sites you visited, how many stars would you rate the site. So this is the way that we're collecting that information. And then our third outcome is the paper version of the passport, which we're calling our summer recreation passport. And it's really geared towards children and families. It includes 8 sites throughout the region. And we are about to launch this on July 20th. We have installed, or we will be installing very soon, a birdhouse at each of these sites that opens up to have a stamp inside. So we're encouraging kids and their families to go find the birdhouse at each site and open it up, get their stamp, and stamp their physical passport. And kind of just a fun way for people to learn about new sites that they didn't necessarily know about, and to get kids and families outside this summer. We're partnering with the Children's Museum of New Hampshire on that effort. So our kickoff event is with them next week, and we're really excited about that. This is just an example of what the passport looks like. So that first page kind of just has an overview of each site, and we try to kind of spread them throughout the region. It notes what the birdhouse looks like. And we kind of also framed it for each site, something to like look out for, some kind of cool feature of each site to kind of get them exploring the whole site. And there's a QR code on each page that leads to more information, whether it's through the town's webpage or just kind of anything that they could go to get more information about the site itself. And then that little open square is for where they'll stamp their passport at each site. Just kind of in conjunction with the whole passport idea, I wanted to mention that also during Seacoast Bike and Walk Month, we did a passport similar to what Southern did that you were talking about earlier, where we encourage people to check out different trails throughout the SRPC and the Rockingham Planning Commission region. So just kind of looking at that bike and ped access, and how we can get people out on the trails and discovering new things that they might not have seen before. And then these are some of our other marketing materials that we're going to be using and promoting this effort during the summer. So these are what the birdhouses look like. This flyer on the left is actually going to be on top of the birdhouses. So when people get to them, they can kind of, it says, congratulations, you found it. And for people who might not know about the program already, it gives some more information. I don't know if you can see, but in the picture on the right next to the birdhouse, there's a really cute little stamp. I think that one has like a coyote or a wolf, and then it has the logo for the project. So there's a different animal at each site. So as the kids go to each site, it's kind of a fun thing to get a different stamp at each one. We're also partnering with local businesses close to the sites to put up these little table tents, which are in the picture, just talking about the project and just trying to spread more information about it, as well as the postcards, which are stacked right in front of the stamp. So just some different promotional materials that people can take with them to learn more about the project. And we thought it was important to create a project logo with, this scale of a project to create recognition. So we have those stickers that we can hand out at our kickoff events or leave at some of the area businesses. We're also planning, like I said, to engage with people. We made a Facebook and Instagram page specifically for this project, which is at Promoting Outdoor Play on either platform. And we're also asking that people share photos during the summer with the hashtag Promoting Outdoor Play New Hampshire, so that we can engage with them, reshare their photos, and also use that as a way to hand out raffle prizes for people who are engaging with us. So that's kind of the overview. We're really excited to kick off this project. It's been really fun to work on. And it's awesome that the New Hampshire Children's Health Foundation saw value in what we were doing originally and helped us continue this effort through promoting outdoor play. So if you guys have any questions for us, we'd be happy to answer. And like I said, if anything data related comes to your mind, I can forward that along to Jackson or do my best, or Nancy and I can do our best to answer that.
We are not the data girls. Do you want me to stop sharing them? All good?
Yeah. Good.
Awesome. Thank you.
Questions from the group? I was curious about the digital passport. Is that how you're collecting data on the use of the different programs?
That'll definitely be an easier way to collect data, because as people submit, we'll have a lot of information. With the paper passports, it's more of, I guess we'll know by how many, we'll have to keep in touch with businesses and where we drop off the physical passports to see how many they've handed out. Because we're not encouraged, we haven't set that program up, so those are being submitted. It's kind of more of just like a fun thing for families to go do. So that we did say in our paper passport, if families then wanted to log their trips using the digital passport, they would be eligible for those raffle prizes.
And taking pictures and posting to Facebook or Instagram also.
Yeah,
I
love
kind of drive to that digital passport.
And the other thing about the digital passport is that it's a way for us to get like up-to-date information. Like if a trail is really mucky, or people can put a comment about what they experience at each site. And we've already had one. I don't know if we've had more, but we've already had one person from Strafford, was it, who wrote in and just said, "Hey, I want to make sure that this beautiful site that nobody knows about in Strafford is on your list." So I think that'll really work well to sort of get extra on the ground information, hopefully.
Yeah, that's great. The bike to work month, was that also a digital passport?
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. We had a paper version and we did have a digital. I don't have the numbers in front of me for how many people use that. I want to say it was like 15 or something.
Okay.
Like a crazy amount, but.
All right.
I have just a quick note. Looking at what you guys have done and the data collection you're proposing with the passport online reminded me of, it's kind of similar to like INREX data, where you're able to get sort of individual inputs on a periodic basis, which also reminded me that during COVID, Google came out with a mobility report. And so which also uses cell phone data to determine where people are going. And I just checked real quick while you guys are doing this presentation. There's 191% increase over baseline of park usage in New Hampshire. So I put that in the chat box with the link if people want to check that out. It's a mobility report by Google for New Hampshire, and it's broken down by county.
We have a question from Dave. Thanks, James.
My question would be this. Well, first of all, I want to give kudos to you guys because this is like an amazing thing that you've done here. You know, and I kind of feel like, you know, this could be something that would be nice to implement in our town, you know, because we have several recreation areas and a lot of highlighted areas, you know, in our conservation lands that I think would definitely be a fit for this type of program. So I'd like to find more information and you know, possibly, you know, try to implement it down in our area. Do you guys have a particular website that I took a bunch of notes, but a particular website that I can go to find this information?
Yeah, so we have a project webpage. It's Strafford.org. I can probably put it in the chat.
Shayna, why don't you put that in the chat box?
Yeah, I was just thinking that. It's Strafford.org/services/capital P, capital O, capital P.
Okay, I'll pull that up and copy it. But again, great job. You guys did an amazing job on this project. It's really impressive. So
Yeah, we're really excited about it. It's really fun.
cool.
In your surveys with the pathways to play, did you ask for comments about what residents would like to see as far as improvements to pathways?
We did the surveys at the beginning. We definitely, are you saying like if they had improvements to our report?
No, if they recommended improvements to their community on being able to access the different parks or
Yeah,
trails.
absolutely. I would say one of the most successful outreaches that we had was at National Night Out. And we had a big board, a big chalkboard that we made and it was, you know, packed with people, residents, and people could come. That was specifically for one park, but it was like, I would love this park more if, and they filled in the different things, and that gave us a ton of feedback. The surveys, I forget how many we got. The surveys were the least like successful outreach that we had there. It really was like going out to the parks and talking to people, the people that were using it, and families at summer camp, kids, like I said. That's where we really got most of our really super useful suggestions.
Okay. I think that
There are no other questions. Thank you. That was great. And next we have a presentation from Zach on Windham trail mapping.
I just want to say thank you for having us. We're going to excuse ourselves, but thank you so much.
Because we're launching POP in 4 days. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I gotta share it first. Good morning, everyone. Can you see that? Okay, so good morning. My name is Zach Swick. For those of you who don't know me, I'm just going to give you a brief presentation on a project that we're currently in the middle of working on. It's apparently a recreation heavy TAC meeting today. This is a project that is a little bit different for us. We typically don't do a lot of recreation mapping projects in our area, at least as far as I'm familiar. Some background on this: about a year ago, a year and a half ago, Windham came to us and said, hey, there are these maps that National Regional Planning Commission made for Pelham. We'd like you to do something similar. Can you? I said, probably, and we looked into it and he said, yeah, let's go ahead, let's do this. So what it involves is us going out into the field, in most cases, taking the GPS points for the trails, because a lot of times these trails don't exist in a digital official fashion. Sometimes there's stuff, you know, a volunteer's gone out there and add something online, but there's not an official trail out there. And a lot of times there's not maps. In some cases there are maps, but they're very old, that sort of thing. So when you think of Windham, you might not necessarily think of conservation or recreation. And it's true, like most of southern, south central and southeast New Hampshire, it's been, you know, heavily, you know, developed suburban for residential style. It's been inhabited by colonists since the 1700s. You know, it's not what the White Mountains, it's not Yellowstone, but at the same time, there are lots of, you know, hidden rare gems that are still there. You know, one thing that doesn't show up here is the Windham Rail Trail, which is probably the best, most established example of a rail trail, a finished rail trail that we have within a single town in our region. There are also a number of different, you know, places that the Conservation Commission has been able to conserve. There's areas around the rail trail. There are conservation easements held by organizations such as the Southeast Land Trust, that sort of thing. And so
why don't you minimize
minimize us?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that better?
Yeah.
And so what we did is we sat down, we said, okay, well, here's about half a dozen different properties that we'd be interested in looking at around the state, whether it's, you know, owned officially by the Conservation Commission or managed by the Conservation Commission, that sort of thing. So I'm going to give you an example of one particular property and just kind of walk you through the process. So for an example, I'm going to use Foster's Pond. And for those who aren't familiar, Foster's Pond is up in the left-hand corner of Windham. It's right kind of, you know, on the Londonderry border pretty much. But it's really interesting that because it lines up with a couple of key other facilities in Windham. One is the Windham Greenway Trail, which is the old rail trail, which has not been improved, but hopefully sometime in the near future, that will be a well-established paved rail trail, and that will actually connect to the Foster's Pond recreation area. And there's also, you can kind of see over there on the map on the right side where it says Nashua Field. So there's the Nashua Road Field, which is a series of ball fields there in the town. That's also connected to all three properties. And this is Foster's Pond. As you can see, it's pretty, you know, scenic. It's a, you know, it's a series of wetlands with a series of trails going around it, and it's pretty well used and well loved, and it's an interesting place. So here's what the input looks like. In this case, Maddie and Adam went out into the field with volunteers, somebody from the Conservation Commission, and, you know, literally walked the trail. And so the points you see here is, you see the big squares, well, I guess they're big diamonds, are waypoints, which means they get to a bridge or something like that, and they say, oh, there's a bridge here, and they plug into the GPS and say bridge. Or somebody says, here's the old stone wall, or the old furnace, or, you know, something like that, or an excavator, something of note. The old furnace. I don't think I'm trying to remember. I don't think there's a furnace on there, but you will sometimes stumble on old, you know, old tractor, the old tractor, but
The old furnace.
yeah, the old Coke furnace. But and they go and they add that because sometimes it's just useful for wayfinding for us creating the maps, and sometimes it is something of historic significance or just interesting. And the points themselves are, if you haven't used a GPS device before, you turn it on and you walk, and it's set that at, you know, every 5 seconds, whatever it is, it checks with the satellites and says where you are and lays a point. And so it leaves a track to where you go. And so, you know, Maddie or Adam turned that on and started walking with somebody and walked around the property. And then they come back and this is what I get. So I get a series of points, which then I have to turn into a line. And you can kind of see the trails there, but it's a little bit of a mess, but, you know, you can see that there's some trails going this way and that way. Again, it's, you know, it's hard to tell exactly when a trail is actually the same trail and when it's a different trail. If they're walking next to each other, sometimes the satellite will move. Sometimes they're actually walking on the same trail, but this trail is wide. Some trails come really close together, some don't. It's hard to tell without some firsthand knowledge of the site. Luckily, there are other sources out there. So here on the left-hand corner, left side is the input that I got from our team. And now on the right are two public data sources that we have for this area. The middle one is the New Hampshire Strategic Office of Strategic Initiatives Fish and Game Department one. And on the right is OpenStreetMaps, which is, if you're not familiar, an open source, publicly sourced data set of GIS and mapping materials. So somebody went out there, walked that themselves, and went and uploaded it. And they look very similar, and they are, but they are actually not exactly the same. So the lines do move. So I've had to make a decision, which one do you follow? And that's based on aerial photography and all that sort of stuff. And here is what the final output looks like. We have the actual trail lines themselves. These are broken up into different trails with different trail attributes. And then the points are, points of interest, whether that's a bridge or a lookout, a particular scenic view, a place where you can sit down. The farthest point on the right that's the National Road ball fields. So that's a point on the map that we want to include. But that's not all that goes into it. There's also DOT's road sets. We use the U.S. Geological Survey's rivers and streams data set, their bodies of water data set, the Fish and Wildlife Service wetlands data set. And then we have both the granite, UNH granites conservation data set, which has conservation parcels, and also those that are maintained by the Windham, or that are we get from the Windham Conservation as ones that they're maintaining. And then we also have elevation data, and we are lucky now that, as opposed to a couple of years ago, we would have been making do with 10 meter resolution parcel data, which is not great by any stretch. And now we have a much finer resolution. And from that, you can create a hillshade, so you can see the actual contours of the land. And when you get all that and you combine it together, you get a map like this. So this is the Foster's Pond. It's a little hard for us to see here because this is in the way. Let's see if I can move this. I don't want to do anything. And I don't want to screw anything up. So there's the title across the top. You can just have to trust me. This is the Foster's Pond and Windham Greenway Trail here. So we have the different trails. We have different icons for different things such as parking, points of interest, views, that sort of thing. This is a large map. This is a 3 feet by 4 foot approximately map. To give you an idea, there's another map on the back wall, which is about half the size. So these are large maps that would ideally be placed at the trailhead, so you can go and look on the map and figure out where you are. They are also online, and if you notice on the left-hand side there is a QR code above the town seal, and that will take you straight to the map on the website. So if you walk up to the trailhead and you don't have a map and you want one, you can go over, scan that QR sign. You now have the map on your phone. It's not necessarily ideal because it's a very big map, so you kind of have to scroll and stuff like that. But you do have it, and you can get around. Here are the two other that are completely finished. The other is Deer Leap, which is down by the Pelham border, and it's a very interesting area. There's this rock outcropping. The Meckle Pond, which is the pond area on the left side there, have been drained after a dam had to be destroyed a couple of years ago, and they just rebuilt that, which you can see. There's a small little picture of it, and I'm looking to get out there this winter when it freezes over because it's got to be pretty full at this point. That's an interesting area. And then the last one that I'm going to show you today is the Route 28 town forest. Now this is up right on the Derry line, right up on Route 28, and this is one of our most established sites. And again, you can see, trailhead, you get sites of interest, the trails themselves, and then there is an old excavator. That's one of the pictures there. It's a little hard to see. It's just standing out there in the middle of the woods. So what's next? We have a number of properties that still need to be done. And what happens is we got to get together and figure out what's what. Because a lot of these trails are, in some cases, not official. They're informal. We have to decide, is this an official trail? Is this not an official trail? Is this a cow path that somebody's been making crossing through? Because as soon as we put this on a map, It's now got the town seal on it. It's now got the town endorsement that, you know, you can use this area, and we don't want people crossing private property, using trails they don't want to use, crossing into sensitive areas, all that sort of stuff. So we have a number of maps where I have various routes that I need to sit down with the Conservation Commission. I plan to tonight, and go through some of these and say, you know, what's a trail, what's not a trail, and get some different items like, you know, what's points of interest you want to include, that sort of thing. So we're just working through that now, but all the GPS data has pretty much been collected, and now it's just, you know, it's a pile of spaghetti, and we got to make sense of it. And that's it. Oh, there's the excavator. Does anybody have any questions?
When they collected the data, was it like a point? They like click the button and pick up a point?
They do so there are two types of point on a typical Garmin GPS. I don't know if it's true for all GPS units, but you have tracking points and waypoints. And a waypoint is you say, this is a point, and you put in some little information about it. The tracking points, it just runs. And so you will see, I think I can't remember if I've seen it from my coworker, Adam has one. I was looking at his. I don't know if it was his or somebody else's, but there are times when people forget they have it on and will get in their car and drive away, and then they'll have it tracking them, all their trip up 93 and that sort of thing. So it just goes at a certain point. So you can actually see how fast they're going based on how the distance between the points.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is if you clicked on the point, then you could tell them to stand in the middle of the trail.
Yeah, but
Tracking points.
and Bruce, if you want to go out and put in a little every 10 steps, you want to write me a note, tell me exactly where you are. That'd be great. But for most of us, I don't think most of us are that committed to.
Just don't put the tracking thing on.
Just let them go.
It's the engineer in you, Bruce.
This is not engineering precision by far. And if we were doing something where you needed a very specific, precise trail, we would have to get a GPS unit and then have an add-on, which then would make it up, because right now the margin of error for something like this is going to be 8 meters, depending on where the satellite is and where you are and how the tree cover works and all that sort of thing. But if we have some basic information, like a lot of these trails are marked by some extent. Somebody's been out there, they have collected data before. We have local knowledge. Sometimes we can make it out through the aerial, and between that, you can make something that's good enough for a trail map of this sort.
What are the layers you guys look through, like that natural heritage?
So we
like to make sure that no trail by mistake gets through the right rare population. The conservation. There's only a lot of conservation. We say, oh, we got all this conservation that we really want to use. Everybody wants to make trails, bikes, trails. And they forget about the talk we had a couple of years ago, where it's great to get people out there. People need to be connected to nature, but before you just put all these maps online, it's really important to make sure that you are creating.
So I can't remember if it was Fish and Game or some other state agency put out a program. It was like. Trails with people or trails and wildlife or something like that, where they did an analysis where they took in they took in a bunch of layers, and they do have different layers on, like where the endangered whatever is. Typically, we don't have that. They don't like to share that a lot of times, and they don't like us to post it even like that, even less. But they did so they did it in-house, and they say, okay, we're going to say we want it to be ideal for people, but also not impacting, if you have whatever the rare species is, that it's not going to be negatively impacted by, people walking on it.
So it's more like, for instance, if a commercial guy wants to build a shopping plaza, he has to say, here's where I'm planning to put my shopping plaza. He sends that to the bureau. They say, oh, we wish it was 30 feet.
If you could be this
he
way.
He doesn't get data.
Right.
He gets told this is a good placement or poor placement. I was just wondering if before you publish the map, if you're sending it to them to determine if you could be creating an impact that's unknowable because you didn't ask and they don't want to tell you in advance.
That's a good question. I don't think we are, not yet at least, because for most of these, they're fairly established properties. They're, we started with the lowest hanging fruit. So the ones that we do have, the trails are there. They've been there for decades at this point. we're probably not going to change them unless that's town's choice. For some of the other ones, some of the newer ones, we might want to look at that. But that's a good point.
You might want to expand now the gallery.
Oh,
so you
yes.
can see if anyone else in line has it.
Let's see.
You go back down to your talking little box there.
There we go.
There you go. Any questions from our virtual audience?
Not seeing any.
All right, Dave or Ruth, Ellen, any questions?
Dave did get his hand up, I guess.
You're muted. There you go.
Yeah, I don't really have questions, but I just like to put some comments in there, because it's important. You guys, this is, like you said, kind of a new project that you started, and I can tell you that from I am, to introduce myself, the chairman of the conservation, and I was the beginning stages of this, working with Sylvia and then with Zach, and some of those pictures I'm actually in them, doing the GPSing of the trails, and I just want to say that this whole process has been, and it's been great to work with you guys. You guys have done an awesome job, even in light of the conflict with COVID-19 and the challenges that we faced with that. All along, the product that you guys are producing for us is awesome. We have kiosks all over the town, and we can't wait to get this, get the maps up on the kiosk so the residents can use them, and the connection to our website is just a fabulous thing. I just want to go back to the importance of the GPS tracking, and you saw the three different maps, the one that we did, and then the other two, one of them being the open space map or whatever it is. So you notice a difference, and the thing that's great about what we've done here is that there was actually some trails on there that were leading people into private property, which we were getting calls constantly from the landowners, but it was on OpenStreetMaps, and it's a public entity, so by us going out and doing the re-GPSing, and we were able to cut those off of our maps because we had the actual data, and now our maps are going to represent the actual conservation trails and not lead people into that private property. So those are some of the things that are very important with doing this type of thing, and it also helps us to show our connectivity between different areas and that kind of thing. But again, I give kudos to all the team that's worked with us in this project, and we look forward to doing more with you guys as time goes on, as we do have other properties that we'd like to add to this list at some point. But yeah, it's been great working with you guys, and for the first time project, I think you've done an excellent job, and I can't say anything more than that. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, I guess I'd echo his point that if for everyone in the town, beware, if you don't have an official layer out there for your trails, your public trails that people can use, you're relying on one that somebody has put together. And I can tell you that I've looked at both the OpenStreetMap and the official state map, and it has people going through private property or under power lines where it's, I grew up under power lines in Hudson. I know that explains a lot. And you would go walking on there, and people would go biking and all that stuff. And it was kind of a no man's land where people weren't go, but they also, people would come up and get their cars stuck driving out there and all that sort of thing. And, if you don't have an official layer, it's going to be whatever somebody says it is.
Zach, on these, I also always think about accessibility. I don't know if any of the trails are accessible for wheelchair, but I usually walk with crutches, and I'm wondering, do you have any sort of scale of walkability for these? And also back to Paul's question earlier about biking and mountain biking, I'm wondering if you have information about which trails you can bike on.
So we have information on what is a bit, for the first answer is do we have anything as opposed to accessibility and, trail terrain, slope, that sort of thing? And the answer is not really. What we do have is you can maybe tell from, the hill shade, maybe that would probably be a good thing that we would want to incorporate. Say, it's the terrain is, gravel and it's flat, and, versus it's up and down steep slopes, that sort of thing.
Right.
And, so sometimes you can tell just from looking at it, if you're more experienced, like Foster's Pond is going to be a much easier trail because it's around a wetland versus Deer Leap, which goes on up over a hill. So the answer is no, but we probably should.
Probably more of a local knowledge. tip
Yeah.
that you can hopefully find it.
Well, we know from, this last year, now this is like our second time this group is meeting, and we're not wearing masks. I mean, a month ago, this was a big debate in our office. Were we going to open up? And, 2 months ago, we were all virtual. But a year ago, no one was meeting and we were all hiding at home. And so we don't know where this thing is going to go. But what we do know is everyone wanted to go out and walk, and they wanted to be outside, and they wanted to be walking in a safe place. So this is a great project. I think, so many of the communities love this kind of trail map, which is why we asked Zach to share them today. So yeah, stay tuned for more.
Just real brief, for those that do allow biking, we will have a separate or I should say this biking exclusive, this mountain biking, we will have a different legend on the map that will say this is a single track that is for mountain biking. I suppose you could walk it, but typically it's not very enjoyable.
Right.
Are there any other questions? Okay, thank you. I think we're done.
Thanks, Zach. That was great. If anyone has any other business that's on the agenda, I don't see any.
Oh yeah, Jonathan.
Ties in perfectly well with this. Last month we had the public hearing presentation for Manchester's master plan. It's a very low turnout for that, but Manchester Moves did come. They had concerns about the lack of a map that was in the 2009 master plan for the rail trails. So we amended it, added a map, a more updated map, but still kind of general of the rail trails, both future and existing. It is going back to planning board August 5th, hopefully adopted by the planning board at that date. So that's nearing an end. And we've entered a contract with the same consultant for a new land use code, but a little bit more than that, to support the master plan's vision.
Thank you. Any other updates from the rest of the group? Yeah.
Tomorrow. I was just gonna say, the DOT, at the DOT, we're having the first 10-year plan meeting. It's the startup meeting. We're getting gas, it's gonna be there. It'll be tomorrow, I think it's at 9.
So for the virtual viewers, I don't know if you heard that, but DOT is hosting the first 10-year plan GASIT hearings. It's going to be at 9 o'clock tomorrow. And I'm imagining, Linda, you can see that on your website.
Yes.
Yeah, so you can find that on the website. Mark, you had something from New Boston.
Yeah, just since there's several municipal employees here in the room, I'd like to make a pitch that the town of New Boston is actively seeking a new town administrator. Applications are being taken through next Friday.
Thanks. And also, we always encourage the TAC members, if you have a topic you would like us to cover, please let us know. We're always open for, different topics, and this was a sort of trails theme today. If you have other interests, just let us know. We're here for you.
Sylvia, this is James Veo. I just have a quick comment that Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission, as part of their virtual public involvement, is recording both the TAC and the MPO meetings and posting them on YouTube. YouTube closed captions those meetings to make them more accessible, and YouTube as a platform just makes these meetings more accessible to more people in the region. In that vein, I just wanted to note that I wasn't certain who was talking prior to DOT. That might have been Jonathan Golden from Manchester talking about the plan. I was just hoping somebody could clarify that. And just as an order of good practice, if people could just announce, it seems kind of funny to do it when you're in the room, but if people could announce who's talking and the organization, it will help orientate viewers when they're watching this recording on YouTube.
Thanks, James. That's a great reminder. And yes, that was Jonathan Golden from Manchester talking about the Manchester Master Plan.
Okay, if no one has anything else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thanks everyone. We'll see you next month.
All right, wait.